In a quiet suburban home lived a young man named Daniel. At 22, his days were a blur of digital distractions and late-night gaming sessions. Mornings were for sleeping in, afternoons for scrolling through social feeds, and evenings for chasing virtual victories that vanished by sunrise. He was drifting through life, oblivious to the precious currency he was squandering: time. His father, a man of 60 with kind eyes and hands weathered by a lifetime of hard work, watched his son with a heavy heart. He saw Daniel's potential, a bright spark dimmed by a lack of direction. He remembered his own youth, a stark contrast to his son's comfortable existence. He had known struggle, the relentless pressure to provide for his family, the gnawing anxiety of an uncertain future. Every single day had been a battle, every hour a resource he couldn't afford to waste. His success wasn't born from luck, but from the deliberate and disciplined use of his time. He knew he had to do something, not with lectures or anger, but with a lesson Daniel would never forget. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the living room, the father found Daniel on the couch, lost in his phone. He sat down beside him, a small, beautifully crafted box in his hand. He didn't speak at first, simply placing the box on the coffee table. The quiet gesture was enough to pull Daniel from his digital world. "What's this, Dad?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. The father smiled gently. "Something for you, son." Daniel opened the box. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a classic wristwatch. It was elegant, with a simple leather strap and a clean, white face. The hands ticked with a steady, rhythmic pulse. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it had an air of permanence, of history. "It was my father's," the father said, his voice soft, and his father's before him. "It doesn't just tell time, Daniel. It represents it." Daniel looked from the watch to his father, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. It's nice." "Thanks, Dad." He was about to put it aside, but his father stopped him. "Look closer," he urged. "Each tick you hear is a second of your life. Gone. Forever. You can't get it back. You can't buy more. You can't pause it." He tapped the crystal face of the watch. "This little machine holds the secret to everything you want in life." The father leaned back, his gaze distant as he journeyed into his past. "When I was your age," he began, "I didn't have the luxury of a comfortable home or the freedom to let my days slip away. I worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I remember the exhaustion, the feeling that I was running on empty. There were days I wanted to give up, to just let the world pass me by." He paused, the memory still vivid. "But then I'd look at this watch. I realized that the successful people I admired, the ones who seemed to have it all, they didn't have more hours in their day than I did. They just used their hours differently. They saw time not as something to kill, but as something to invest. Every hour spent learning a new skill, every minute dedicated to a project, every second focused on a goal was an investment in their future." He looked directly at Daniel, his voice filled with earnest passion. "I started seeing my time as my most valuable asset. I woke up an hour earlier to read, to plan my day. I used my lunch breaks to network. I spent my evenings learning a trade instead of just watching TV. It was hard, Daniel, incredibly hard. But slowly, inch by inch, those invested moments began to pay off. They compounded like interest in a bank account. My skills grew, my opportunities expanded, and eventually, I built the life we have today." He gestured around the comfortable room. "All of this. It didn't come from wishing. It came from respecting the tick of that clock. It came from understanding that every wasted moment is a piece of your future you've thrown away." His words hung in the air, heavier than Daniel had expected. For the first time, he saw the deep lines of fatigue around his father's eyes, not as signs of old age, but as symbols of sacrifice. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His father's words echoed in his mind. He looked at the new watch on his wrist. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Each sound was a small hammer striking his conscience. He thought about the thousands of hours he had poured into video games, the endless scrolling, the days that bled into one another with nothing to show for them. He felt a profound sense of regret, a hollow ache for the time he could never recover. The next morning, something inside him had shifted. When his alarm rang at 6 a.m., he didn't hit snooze. He got up. He put on his running shoes and went for a run as the sun rose, feeling the crisp morning air fill his lungs. It was difficult, his body protesting the sudden change, but with each step, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He started small. Instead of scrolling through his phone during breakfast, he read a book on digital marketing. He dedicated 2 hours every afternoon, the time he would have normally wasted on gaming, to learning how to code through an online course. He created a schedule, breaking down his days into productive blocks of time. He treated each block as a commitment to himself, a promise to his future. The transformation wasn't instantaneous. There were days he felt the pull of old habits, the temptation to slip back into his comfortable cocoon of procrastination. On those days, he would look at the watch on his wrist. Tick, tock. It was his anchor, his constant reminder that time was marching on, with or without him. He would think of his father's story, of the sacrifices made for him, and the desire to make his father proud would overpower the urge to quit. Months turned into a year, and then 2. The changes in Daniel were remarkable. The lethargy in his eyes was replaced by a sharp focus. The slouch in his shoulders straightened with newfound confidence. He had not only completed several online courses, but had also started a small freelance business, helping local companies with their digital presence. He was busy, often tired, but it was a good kind of tired. It was the satisfying exhaustion that comes from meaningful work. One evening, Daniel was working late at his desk, finalizing a proposal for a major client. His father walked in, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He placed one beside Daniel and watched him for a moment, a quiet pride filling his expression. Daniel looked up and smiled, a genuine, happy smile. "Thanks, Dad," he said, gesturing to the complex project on his screen. "I think I'm going to land this one." The father nodded, his gaze falling on the watch on Daniel's wrist. It was the same watch he had given him 2 years ago, now a natural part of his son. "You know," the father said, "I never told you the full story of that watch. When my father gave it to me, I was a lot like you. Adrift. He told me the watch was a compass. Not to find north or south, but to find my own direction, my own purpose. He said that as long as I was moving forward, no matter how slowly, I was honoring the time I was given." Daniel looked at his father, a deep sense of gratitude welling up inside him. He finally understood. Success wasn't about a single moment of breakthrough. It was the sum of thousands of disciplined, intentional moments. It was the choice, made over and over again, to invest in oneself, to value the irreplaceable gift of time. The watch wasn't magic. The secret wasn't in the object itself, but in the mindset it represented. It was a reminder that life isn't about waiting for the perfect moment, but about making every moment count. Thank you for watching this story. We hope it inspired you to look at your own time differently. If you enjoyed this video and want more life-changing motivational stories to help you learn English, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We're OrangePaws-Stories, and we believe in the power of stories to change lives. Until next time, make every hour count.